The parable of the weeds of the field is unique in that it's one of the handful of parables that Jesus actually explains. It's one of the handful of parables where he actually explains the symbolism and everything, which makes my job really easy. There's nothing in which I really have to dig too deep into this parable. Now, Jesus often uses agricultural imagery in these parables, in these stories, because he was so common to the people of his day and of his time. Anybody would be able to relate to this idea of a wheat harvest and what that would all entail. So the imagery is something that would have resonated with them, but this is also one of the cases where that imagery, resonates with us. Even I think this is a very easy parable to look at and understand, kind of the thinking behind the master in this case, as well as how this kind of connects. This is, of course, a parable that is talking about the final judgment, and in that sort of allegory for the final judgment, we have wheat, which represents those who are believers, who are right, who are considered righteous. And the weeds as well, which would be anybody who's not a believer and would thus be considered unrighteous. And in this, we see, a separating of those two groups that reveals the fates of each one, and kind of a righting of wrongs. And I do think it's interesting that the master's decision to not pull up the weeds is kind of explained as a way to preserve the wheat, which sort of implies here that the reason why people who do bad things, who would not be counted among the righteous, are allowed to kind of remain alive and operating, is because it might also be a threat to the righteous as well. So this kind of idea of letting everything kind of grow up to the time of harvest, or in the case of people in the world, letting everybody go to the time of judgment before making that sort of separation. Because there might be something mistake. That's just kind of an interesting little bit of tidbit in here that is kind of like sort of hidden in it. And so, what does that mean for us? Well, as we're kind of assessing and analyzing uh, these things, we should be asking ourselves, are we truly, being the righteous? Are we truly being in that category? And we should take some self-reflection whenever we read a parable like this to ask ourselves if we are, and hopefully many of you out there are. If not, there's never too late of a time while you're, still alive to, change that. And this is the kind of the reason why is because of that ultimate eternal fate. So we should assess ourselves in that way, and then from that, we should also understand that being amongst that kind of wheat doesn't mean that we just kind of simply stop that we just kind of stop growing. A lot of times with these harvests, if a wheat plant wasn't producing as much as it was expected, or it looked diseased, or it didn't grow enough, they would throw that in the fire too. It would be counted among the weeds. So we want to be continuing to grow and to exhibit those elements, those fruits of the spirit that show that we have been transformed by Christ. Because that is part of being counted in that position of that group of being the righteous. So we should take. I want us to take a moment of this week to kind of reflect on that aspect, to adjust our actions in any sort of way, if necessary, to turn back to Christ. It's never too late to do that, and it's always a good practice for all of us as believers to kind of take that sort of self-assessment. So I would encourage you all to do that this week. Amen. And now I'd like to invite you all to join me for our last worship song today.